All right, so today we are in lesson 2 of Daniel, and we're still in chapter 7. So we're just going to be reviewing chapter 7 a little bit before we move forward into the lesson. So if you have the text of chapter 7, we're just going to review what we talked about last week, kind of an overview of the whole chapter. So we have chapter 7 starts with Daniel saying, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. So where are we in this time frame? Who's the ruling country at this point?
Still Babylonian.
Yes, the Babylonian country. And this is, if you just think back to Daniel chapter 2 with Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the statue, we're comparing that dream with those kingdoms to Daniel's vision now and how they relate to those kingdoms. So we're still in the first kingdom of Babylon. But we have a different king. Belshazzar is the last king of Babylon. Okay, and so Daniel says he has a dream. At this point, Daniel is about 70 years old. He's been in captivity for like 55 years. And this is probably 14 years before the end of Babylon, when the Medes and Persians take over. So that's the context of where we are historically here. All right. So in Daniel 7, his vision that he has is about what?
4 great beasts.
Okay, 4 great beasts. So the beast, who do the beasts represent?
4 kingdoms.
Right, exactly, 4 kingdoms. And that parallels with the statue of Daniel chapter 2. Okay, so we're looking at now the same vision, but this is about 50 some years after the dream of the statue, when Daniel has this vision. So there's been more than 50 years that have transpired since the statue dream and the visions that Daniel has about the beasts, which are also representative of kingdoms, 4 kingdoms. Okay, so Daniel, the first kingdom we talked about last week says it was like a lion. And which kingdom does that first, the lion represent?
Babylon.
Right, Babylon, okay. And then the next one, the second one, resembled a bear, but it was raised up. And what did we say about that? Which kingdom was that?
Medes and Persians.
And Medes and Persians, right. And we saw that played out in the whole book of Daniel in those first 6 chapters. We know that those first 2 kingdoms are Babylon and then the Medes and Persians. Okay. So, and then there's another kingdom that is represented by a leopard. It's the 3rd kingdom. And at this point, we don't yet know who that is. We will know that next week. But right now, we can't identify that kingdom from what we have already studied. And then the 4th one, the 4th kingdom, and this is where we want to spend our time today, because this is what Daniel was most concerned about. He wanted to know about this 4th kingdom. And it says it's different. So what do we know about that 4th kingdom from Daniel 7? If you look at your chart, the beasts and dragons of Daniel, you will have identified what we know about that 4th kingdom.
Uses iron to describe them as being strong and able to crush others.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was terrifying and dreadful and exceedingly strong.
Mm-hmm.
Different than the others.
Right, different than the others.
It had 10 horns,
Mhm.
and then another horn, and then 3 horns fell.
Right, right. You got it. You did the math. Yeah. So 10 horns, this kingdom has 10 horns, And out of those, among those comes another horn. And then 3 horns are ripped out. Okay, so what do we know about the horns? What do the horns represent?
Kingdoms.
Yeah, kings.
Kings.
Yeah, kings, right, kings. So we have 10 kings, and then we have another one that rises up out of there, and then 3 are overtaken. What did you learn about this horn that rises up out of the 10, from among the 10s?
Has eyes and speaks with a human voice and saying great things.
Mhm.
And not great as in good.
Right, not great as in good, but boasting, right? Thank you for clarifying that, Mark. Yeah. So that's how the 4th kingdom is described in Daniel 7. And then what happens next in the chapter? When you got this 4th kingdom, and then what's the next thing that happens?
I have made war with the saints.
Okay, he made war with the saints. Until what? What's the next event that is in Daniel's vision?
Verse 9, when the Ancient of Days took his seat.
Okay, the Ancient of Days takes his seat. And who's the Ancient of Days?
God,
God, okay? He's in that description of him, and judgment begins. And then what do you see in verse 13?
The second
One like-
coming.
yeah, one like the Son of Man
Okay,
comes.
one like the Son of Man. Okay, so now we have Jesus appearing, and what is given to him?
Dominion.
Dominion. For how long?
Everlasting dominion.
Yeah. Won't
Okay.
pass away.
Okay, it will not pass away. So if you go back to thinking about that statue, you had the 4 kingdoms, and then what was at the base of that statue?
The rock.
The rock, which represented this kingdom of Jesus, right?
Mhm.
The one that will crush everything else, and it will never end. So we have, again, in Daniel, we have history recorded here, prophetic history, from the time of the Babylonians all the way to the end of time. So this is, and Daniel was written in 550 BC. 550 BC. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot to think about, this vision that he has for the end. All right. So it says here about Dave, you talked about this last week, and how this horn, this little horn, I'm trying to find it in Daniel 7, will want to he will wage war with the saints, and he will want to make changes in
End
time.
of times, yeah.
Yes, I can't find it.
I'm looking for it too.
Yeah,
Verse
thank you.
25, verse 25.
25.
Verse 25. Well, I can't find it because I only have 1 page of Daniel 7. Here it is. No wonder I can't find it. Right, in 25. So said he will want to make alterations in times and in law, and they will be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. And what did you find out this week's lesson about times, and half a time?
I spent ages with my calculator and the
Oh,
months
okay.
and the days, and then the next I turned over and read it. It was 3.5 years.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Somebody
did
did it
the
before.
same. I tried to calculate it at first,
Yeah.
and then down at the bottom I read
Yes.
it was
What
3.5
do we
years.
like?
But they
Yeah.
all turned out to be 3.5 years.
Exactly, they did.
Every reference.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I love that you were using your calculators. Yeah. So that time, times, and half a time, and we'll see that phrase in Daniel frequently. But what it's saying is 3.5 years. What were some of the other ways you saw it described?
42 months in
42
Revelation
months.
13:5.
Mm-hmm.
And 1,260 days.
Okay,
Yeah, when I calculated 42 months, it was 1,278.3 days. But evidently they had a little bit different calculation to get
Exactly.
1,260.
Me too, Nancy.
yeah. Oh, my goodness. In the homework, it stated that, let me find it, on page 12, it said about the days. It says, according to the biblical reckoning of time, 360 days to a year. 360 days to a year. Okay. Which would be 1,260 days.
Yeah, when I calculated 1,260 days, that was 42 30-day months,
Right, right.
or
Right.
3.45 years.
Okay, okay. So we got it 3.5 years. All right. 3.5 years. So that's what we're talking about. That's important to understand that time frame as we go study the rest of Daniel, right? So 3.5 years. So we have, at this point, we have identified the first kingdom, Babylon. We have identified the second kingdom, the Medes and Persians. We have a third kingdom, and we have the fourth kingdom that Daniel is asking about. Now, what we're going to focus on is that fourth kingdom, and we want to make comparisons of Daniel 7 and that fourth beast, and Revelation 12 and Revelation 13, and see what do we see that are similar, that are the same. And let me just say this, Daniel was written 550 BC. Revelation was written 95 AD. Okay, so when we see these similarities, and you tie that all together over such a long time period, it's pretty amazing. Okay, so let's look at Daniel in Revelation 12. Revelation 12. Revelation 12 starts with a sign that appears where?
In heaven.
In heaven, okay? And what is the sign?
There was a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head was a crown of 12 stars.
All right, so that's the number one sign. A woman with a crown on her head of 12 stars. And she was
Pregnant.
pregnant. And she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. Then there's a second sign. And what's the second sign?
Great red dragon.
Okay, so now we have a great red dragon. What do we see about this great red dragon? And you probably have it on your chart under the column of Revelation 12.
7 heads and 10 horns.
10 horns.
Okay, have we seen 10 horns before? In Daniel 7, right? Okay, so what else do you see about this dragon?
His tail swept away a third of the stars.
Mm-hmm.
He was waiting to devour the child.
Right. What else do we learn about him, about the dragon?
Well, he waged
other-
war with Michael and his angels.
Mhm. Who is the dragon?
Satan,
Satan.
in verse 9, he's the serpent of old.
Okay, so right there in verse 9, it tells you exactly who he is. So when we're identifying the characters in these signs, we know for sure that the dragon is Satan. Yeah, and he wages war with Michael.
Yeah, and then later it says he made war on the rest of the offspring of the woman, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. So that would be like the saints, I guess, which compares to Daniel 7 then.
Mhm. Right, right, of the saints. Anything else that you see about this dragon?
He's a deceiver.
Okay,
And
why do you say that?
He was deceiving, I gotta find the verse, but he was deceiving and accusing. Verse 9, I think, yeah.
Yeah, he deceives the whole world.
So this dragon is Satan. He deceives the whole world. He is waiting to devour the child. Who did you determine that the woman is?
The mother of Jesus, presume.
The Israelites, state of Israel.
Any other observations about that or agreements?
I was thinking it might be even a little more broader than that, than the believers and the church as a whole.
Okay, so we have the woman, and who's the child?
Christ.
Jesus.
Jesus.
Yeah. No question about that, right?
No.
Right, and if you go back to the statue, that's what's coming. And if you go back to Daniel 7, and you see that God sits to judge and Jesus has dominion given to him. So this sign, the signs now, the woman being pregnant with Jesus, and the dragon is Satan, and he is waiting to devour the child, to destroy Jesus. Okay. Let me find my place here. The woman, let me look at verse 17 for a second.
Maybe
Okay,
even
so if you
14.
look at 17, so the dragon, when he's thrown down to earth, he is enraged. Okay. And he knows that he only has a short time. So he is going to take advantage of that. So the dragon was enraged with the woman and went, because she escaped, right? She escaped, and is protected for how long?
3.5 years.
Okay, there we go.
14.
So, yeah, 13, thanks.
14.
14. Yes, take her away and she is protected for time, times, and half a time. And that basically is how much time the dragon has once he's thrown down to earth. Okay, so the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her children who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. That verse would help us understand that the woman more than likely is Israel, not Mary, because Jesus was the child of Mary, but he's talking about the rest of her children, the ones who keep the commandments. And that helps us understand, clarify who these people are. The dragon is Satan, the woman is Israel as a nation, okay, and then the child is Jesus. Okay, so what similarities do we have between Daniel 7 and Revelation 12?
Well, the dragon is making war with the people of Israel.
Hmm?
And the saints overcome.
Okay, that's good news. Where do you see that?
"22. Until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was passed in favor of the saints of the highest one, and the time arrived when the saints took possession of the kingdom."
So the saints take possession of the kingdom, and for how long? What verse are you in, Dave?
I was at 22,
Of Daniel 7?
yes.
Yeah.
But then 23, the fourth beast will come and devour the whole earth, tear it down and crush it. And then in verse 25, and then they'll be given into his hands for times and a half, 3.5 years.
Okay, so we're talking about the time of tribulation. We're talking about the last 7 years, which we're going to see in Daniel. It's called the final week of Daniel, which consists of 7 years. So each week is that they're talking about is represented by a year. 3.5 years, the first 3.5 years is when Satan is thrown down to earth and he is persecuting the believers, right? And so that will happen until the middle of that time when Jesus then takes everything back. Okay. So there will be the time in the end when he will be ruling. And we're going to see that in chapter 13 of Revelation. Chapter 12 and chapter 13, there's no chapter divisions in the scripture. And if you look at the last verse of chapter 12 of Revelation, it says, "So the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her children who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus." Chapter 13, "And the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore." So we're not studying Revelation, okay, but we're having to use Revelation to understand the fourth beast of Daniel 7. So possibly Revelation 13 is what Satan's plan is. He's enraged because he couldn't get to the woman for 3.5 years, but he's going after, it says, the rest of her children who did not escape to the wilderness. Okay, so this could possibly be his plan for those 3.5 years that he has. So we want to just follow up on that and see what's happening now. So it says the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. And then the vision, this is John now in Revelation. "Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea." So let's talk about this beast in Revelation 13, who comes up out of the sea. And how is that beast described in the Revelation to John?
Well,
Hey,
there's
are you
those
saying
10 horns again.
Oh, there's the 10 horns again, right? So there's the 10 horns again.
And 7
Interesting.
heads and 10 crown, it says 10 crowns.
Mhm.
But it's
That's
interesting,
the
the other
mess-
animals used to describe the statue are also represented. You got
Right,
the
Mark.
leopard, the bear, and the lion.
Mhm.
Mm.
And those are the animals that we saw in Daniel's vision that described the kingdoms that were in Nebuchadnezzar's dream and the statue. So we have again, we have the 10 horns. We have 10 diadems, which would be the kingly crowns. 7 heads with blasphemous names. What do we know about those 10 horns? What happened when the little horn came up? And then,
3 of them were thrown down.
right. 3 of them were thrown down, and that would leave you with 7 heads. Okay, so, and this is all symbolism, okay, representing history here. So it's hard to just be so certain about everything, but when you play it all out, and we're going to see more as we move through the book of Daniel, this is going to make a lot more sense. All right, so we have we're looking right now at the things that help us understand the 4th beast in Daniel 7. Okay, and we see the comparisons: 10 horns, the 7 heads. In Revelation 12, you had 7 crowns on those heads. Revelation 13, you have 7 heads, and there's blasphemous names written on it. And as Mark mentioned, you have the leopard, the bear, and the lion that ties that all together. And then with that beast, what happens with that beast that has risen up? In verse 2,
Yeah, the dragon gives him his great power and throne with great authority.
okay, so the dragon, we have the dragon, now we have a beast. Okay, 2 separate characters here, because the dragon gives the beast his power. So the dragon is not the beast in this chapter. He gives him his power and his throne and great authority. Okay, what else do we see about that beast?
One of the heads appears to have a mortal wound.
Mhm. One head appears to have a mortal wound. There's 7 heads, right? One of them appears to have a mortal wound, and he recovers.
And the whole earth marveled at that and followed the beast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In verse 5, his speaking, and for how long?
42 months or
Okay.
3.5 years.
3.5 years. So that is how long. It says he was given a mouth speaking arrogant words. We saw that back in Daniel 7, the mouth uttering great boasts of the little horn. That was the little horn. Okay.
Mhm.
So can we think that the little horn in Daniel 7 is the beast of Revelation 13?
I think so.
Mhm. And it was given to him to make war, which we see in Daniel 7. He waged war with the saints. Revelation 13, the beast is waging war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. So he is ruling the world at this time. But it ties back to Daniel 7, that little horn that rises up is comparable to the beast in Revelation 13. Then in 11, Revelation 13:11, we have another beast. Correct? So now we have the dragon and we have the beast that is the little horn of Daniel 7. And now we have another beast. So what do we learn about this beast? What does he look like?
He has two horns.
Interesting, it says he's like a lamb.
Mhm.
And he-
Why is that interesting?
Because Jesus is the Lamb of God, but this is the fake lamb.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Otherwise known as the false prophet.
And when Satan spoke to Jesus in the wilderness, he said, I'll give you this, this, and this. He didn't have that authority, but he thought he did.
Mhm.
Give him the kingdoms of the earth, because he'd had that authority for a little while.
Yeah. So this second beast, what's his role? What do you see him doing here?
He makes the earth worship the first beast.
Mhm.
And it also performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven.
Mhm.
And therefore it deceives everyone on the earth and has them make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. So that was the first beast on here.
Mhm. And what's the purpose of the image?
To deceive the world because it was given life and made to seem like it was doing living things and doing great wondrous signs.
Mhm. And so, and who are people supposed to worship?
The image of the beast. And if
Yes,
those
yeah.
then would be
Mhm.
slain.
Right. So the dragon gives authority and power to the first beast, who is the little horn of Daniel 7, who would be the Antichrist. Then the second beast is the false prophet, who then supports the first beast and gets people to worship the first beast.
11, Revelation 11.
13.
Some say that false prophet
11.
could represent the religious branch of the community. So there you have the Antichrist who is ruling the world, and then you have the religious leader, false prophet, who is supporting that and getting everybody to worship the beast. And if they did not worship the beast, the image of the beast, then what happened?
They're slain.
Mhm. Right, right. And then you have in the end of chapter 13, you have the mark. Talk about the mark. What is the purpose of the mark?
To force people to worship the beast, because if you don't have the mark, you can't buy and sell.
Right, right. If you don't have a mark, you can't buy and sell. The mark of the beast. Okay, then look at Revelation 20. You have one verse from Revelation 20 that's been printed here at the end of 13. And how does that tie into what we've been talking about?
chapter 7 of Daniel when the Ancient of Times showed up and started making judgment.
Right, right. And that's the day we're looking for, right? Yeah. And what about those who were beheaded? Why were they beheaded?
They didn't have the mark,
Mhm. Mhm.
and they were for the testimony of Jesus and the word of God. They were
Mhm.
beheaded.
So let me ask you, do you think Daniel would have taken the mark?
No.
No,
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 he's been steadfast his whole life.
Yeah, yeah. So what we know about Daniel, we know we don't have to think about it, he would not have taken the mark. So if Daniel had been in that situation, he would have been beheaded. So then the question is, what about us? If we're alive when this happens and we're given a mark, would you take the mark?
I hope not.
It's a hard question.
Easy to speak the answer, a
Mhm.
little bit harder to live the answer.
Yes.
Right. Because if you don't take it, what happens?
can't buy and sell.
And possibly lose your head.
Right.
And lose your head.
Yeah, you lose your head. But if you lose your head, where
But
are you?
to life and reign with Jesus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it says I saw the souls who had been beheaded because of the testimony of Jesus and because of the word of God, and those who had not worshiped the beast and had received the mark on their forehead, and they came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years.
what verse?
That's Revelation 20, verse 4. So it's so important to put all this in perspective, to see in the end, our home is in heaven. So we get there by not taking the mark. We get there by not worshiping the beast. He's a deceiver. He's a deceiver, and he has the false prophet helping him deceive even the believers, if possible, it says. So it's like, it's easy to say, right? It's not easy to do. But without a doubt, I mean, there's no way we could take the mark. We can't take the mark. And if we don't take the mark, we win.
But in Paul's time, well, after Paul's time, the early Christians, some of them were brutally murdered and
Mhm.
beheaded and sliced sliced in half and things. So there was a huge persecution, and many of them stayed faithful. But we're told, oh, because of that, they'll receive the crown. But that must have been really, really hard at the time.
Really, right. Right. And when you see other believers being killed for their faith, I mean, is it going to give you second thoughts? But again, I go back to Daniel. Who is our role model here? Daniel was thrown in the lion's den. He was like, whatever. I'm not changing what I'm doing. I'm worshiping God every day. And that's not going to change, even if they kill me. So we always have to look the big picture. The big picture is that our place is in heaven. It's in heaven. So we don't want to give that up by taking the mark. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of implications. I remember the last time I taught this, one woman said, well, I'd have to buy for my kids. I'd have to be able to buy and feed my kids. That's reality. But are you willing to give up eternity? Yeah. What do you think about the fact that all of this was prophesied over such a long period of time? Daniel in the Old Testament, 550 BC, John writing in Revelation in 95 AD, and how these visions come together about the end times, about history.
Amazing.
How does that help you?
It's the word of the Lord, not the word of a man.
Mhm. Yeah. It really helps me to understand that it's true. I mean, it's true. It's true. God showed it to Daniel, and then in the end, God showed it to John. And we know how this is all going to play out. So it's true. So when we are faced with temptations to give up our faith, we can't, because we know how this is going to end. It's all put together so solidly from over years and periods of time and history that has played itself out with these kingdoms. So God's plan that he gave Nebuchadnezzar in that statue in chapter 2 with the rock at the bottom, that's how it all ends, with that rock. With Jesus having dominion forever and ever and ever. And that kingdom that we belong to, the kingdom of the saints, will never end. So any other comments about this? Probably still a little confusing, or a lot confusing, but we're going to work on it next week. It's going to start to come together even better. Okay, so next week we're still in chapter 7. Still in chapter 7, but we're putting it together.